Warplane in Greenland. Under 300 feet of ice in Greenland, a World War II P-38 plane has been discovered. On July 15, 1942, there were 6 P-38 fighter aircraft and 2 B-17 bombers that encountered a blizzard and were forced to conduct an emergency landing in the middle of a glacier in Greenland. All the crew members ended up being rescued just over a week later, but the aircrafts were all left behind. Over the years, the shifting ice sheets buried the aircrafts, which came to be known as the Lost Squadron. But 50 years later, in 1992, one of the planes was finally extracted from the ice. It was even restored to perfect flying condition. According to popular mechanics, a new expedition has discovered a second aircraft from the Lost Squadron. They used ground-penetrating radar mounted on drones to search for the buried planes. Once they detected one of them, a team went down to check it out. The aircraft has since been identified as the P-38 Echo, and with support from the governments of the United States and the United Kingdom, along with Greenland, the extraction process began. The team is now using heat plates to tunnel down to the craft, where they will then send workers to disassemble the plane and bring it up piece by piece. The Terror frozen in ice. There's nothing quite as fascinating as a ship stuck in the ice, but even more amazing is the story of the HMS Erebus and the HMS Terror, 2 ships that went missing in 1845 and were recently discovered completely trapped in the ice and still relatively intact. These 2 ships were part of the Royal Navy expedition led by Captain Sir John Franklin, in which they tried to navigate through the Northwest Passage to get to the other side. It is one of the most famous naval tragedies in history and has inspired books and even television series. It's fascinating because all 129 men on the expedition died under mysterious circumstances after abandoning the vessels and trying to make it to safety on foot. Of course, none of the crew members made it to safety, but they didn't die right away either. It's generally believed that over 2 winters trapped in thick ice, the 129 crew members slowly and miserably came to their ends, likely after resorting to cannibalism. But now, nearly 200 years after this horrifying tragedy, both expedition ships have finally been discovered. The HMS Erebus was found in 2014 by Parks Canada, firmly stuck inside the ice. Then, in 2016, the HMS Terror was found by an Arctic research team in near-perfect condition. Both boats had been stuck inside the ice for around 175 years.
Sunken Russian submarine. Life for members of the Russian Navy took a treacherous turn in the year 2000 after they were involved in a shocking accident that caused the Kursk-class submarine to sink to the bottom of the Barents Sea. There were more than 100 crew members on board when the sub suffered either an explosion or a collision. The distressed crew members quickly lost all radio communications, and they spent hours tapping out messages in Morse code in a desperate attempt to get help. Things looked extremely grim for the crew, who were trapped on the seabed with no way of escaping. Rescuers scrambled to send down supplies of oxygen and water for the terrified crew, but it took an agonizing number of hours before the rescue team could get to the bottom of the sea to inspect the hull of the sub and figure out what caused the accident. Even as they were working on rescuing the crew, Russian officials remained tight-lipped about what actually happened, leaving distressed loved ones of the sailors to wonder if their husbands, sons, and brothers had been injured during the accident or if they'd been killed in the accident. No one knew exactly where the accident occurred or even how long it would take for the crew to be rescued. Making matters even worse, water completely filled the torpedo holds of the submarine, which would have immediately put the lives of the crew in danger, possibly even killing them within minutes. A commander in the Russian army did leak a bit of information though, that there were signs of the hull of the sub getting into a collision. When looking at the submarine and its 13,900-ton, 500-foot hull, you could only imagine the force of the accident that would have caused such damage. But when the rescue team finally got a look, they realized the incident was caused by an explosion, which is one of the worst-case scenarios for the crew. The only good news is that even though the submarine could carry a maximum of 24 nuclear missiles, there weren't any on board, and the nuclear reactors on board had also been switched off. Even as the Russian commander remained tight-lipped, he didn't have very good news for the rescue mission, saying that the probability of a successful mission was not very high. As time wore on, it was clear that the rescue mission was going to be more of a recovery. Distraught family members gathered together, spending agonizing days waiting for news about their loved ones. Sadly, over the course of 4 days, crews were unsuccessful and everyone on board died. The most shocking thing is, this wasn't the first time Russian submarines have gotten into similar trouble. From 1960 to 1989, subs have either gone down after fires on board, suffered near meltdowns of their nuclear arsenal, or suffered explosions that killed crew members. The accident was a severe blow to the Russian military, but even worse, it devastated the families of the men who never came home.
Iron Age horse. In Norway, a melting glacier high up in the mountains has revealed the remains of a horse that dates back all the way to the Iron Age. This is a pretty incredible find, as it shows that people from the Iron Age were using horses to transport things high up in the mountains in areas where people were not previously thought to have been roaming around. It's believed that the horse discovered under the ice was being used at the time by hunters to carry reindeer carcasses off the mountains to be eaten. During the summer season, reindeer get bothered by horseflies and move up into the ice, and that must have made for an excellent hunting ground during the Iron Age. It makes sense that the hunters would have gone up there to search for potential food. Along with the actual horse remains, archaeologists also found horseshoes and horse manure in the ice. As the glaciers all over the world melt, more and more interesting discoveries that had been buried either in the Ice Age or near the end of the Ice Age are being uncovered. The horse in Norway is just one example of countless discoveries being thawed as our world warms. Several prehistoric horses have also been found in the ice. An extinct type of horse called the Lena horse was found with liquid inside of it. Scientists are now working to clone the horse and possibly bring it back to life. What do you think? Do you think this is a good idea? Let me know in the comments below, and while you're at it, be sure to subscribe if you are new here. We've got a lot of amazing videos coming up. Victims of sacrifice. Here we have a pretty disturbing discovery. Scientists first discovered the mummified remains of 3 children in 1999 entombed inside of a shrine near the summit of a volcano in Argentina, over 21,000 feet up. The children buried there included a 13-year-old girl and a younger boy, and a girl who were thought to be around 5 years old. Their remains date back to 500 years ago during the reign of the Inca Empire, who had dominated South America until the greedy Europeans arrived near the ending of the 15th century. The remains were found in exceptional condition because they had been preserved by the ice and the cold. What's really interesting is that an international team of researchers used forensics to try and discern a little more about the final moments of these children's lives. What they found was mass amounts of alcohol and coca leaves in their systems. Basically, these 3 children had been consuming alcohol and cocaine before they were brought up to the top of the mountain to die. According to the BBC, alcohol and cocaine was strictly reserved for the elite and for special rituals in the Incan civilization. Scientists believe the children were selected for sacrifice, and that was when the alcohol and coca consumption began. And this may have been for the best, since all 3 were locked in their tombs and left to die pretty nasty deaths. If I were being sacrificed, I probably would not mind being loaded up on booze and coca too. Incan mummies. The children of Yuyayaka, also known as the mummies of Yuyayaka, are 3 child mummies of Inca origin found way back in March of 1999. They were discovered near the summit of a massive stratovolcano near the border of Argentina and Chile, over 22,000 feet above sea level. But what makes these mummies so incredible is that they were found perfectly preserved in the ice. Further investigation by archaeologists revealed that the children had been sacrificed in an ancient Inca ritual that took place somewhere around the year 1500. But what kind of ritual was being done at the top of a volcano? Well, scientists say that the 3 children were drugged, placed inside of a small chamber in the ground, and then basically just left to die. But because of the high altitude and the freezing conditions, they were perfectly preserved in ice until their rediscovery. In fact, they were so well preserved that the children still had hair, skin, and all their internal organs. One of the children's hearts still contained frozen blood. Scientists are now saying that these are the best preserved Inca mummies ever discovered. But why were they sacrificed? What purpose did the death of these children serve? The truth is that it's still a bit of a mystery. Some historians believe that sacrifice by the Incans was an important way to commemorate special events, like the death of an important member of society. It was also a way to offer the gods something to gain favor during times of famine or of strife. However, they didn't do this kind of thing willy-nilly. In order to sacrifice children at the top of the volcano, the Inca emperor had to give his direct approval. Woolly rhinoceros. Child mummies can be pretty disturbing. So let's move on to a frozen woolly rhinoceros recently discovered in Siberia. This special woolly mammoth made headlines all over the world when it was found by a local farmer in Yakutia, Siberia back in August 2020. It's generally believed that the woolly rhinoceros went extinct around 15,000 years ago, but this particular rhino was found to be even older. About 20,000 years ago, the young rhino was going about its daily business when it likely drowned in a river in Siberia and became frozen. A few millennia later, the melting permafrost revealed the final moments of this rhino's life. Unlike a lot of discoveries of woolly rhinoceroses and woolly mammoths, this specimen was unusually well preserved, with scientists even finding its last meal still sitting frozen inside of its belly. The rhino still had its hair, and even its horn was found close to its corpse. All of these amazing finds are going to help scientists to properly study the anatomy and behavior of the woolly rhinoceros when it was alive, which is absolutely crucial to science, especially if we're ever hoping to bring these creatures back from extinction. And while resurrection is not on the table right now, if we get more impressive specimens like this unveiled within the melting snow, you just never know what the future could hold. Have you found anything totally frozen in the ice? If you live somewhere where it gets cold in the winter, you might have found interesting plants or even an animal frozen solid. Tell me about the most bizarre ones you've seen by writing in the comments section below. Remember to subscribe to Talltanic if you have not already for more intense videos just like this one.
Antarctica's buried mountains. Things in Antarctica might be bigger than they seem if a new study is to be believed. Researchers were in for a shock when they uncovered evidence that a mysterious range of mountains hiding under a massive ice sheet was a lot bigger than they thought. The Gamburtsev subglacial mountains in East Antarctica are covered in over 15,000 feet of ice, making them a bit of a mystery to scientists. It has taken over 100 years of exploration in the region, but researchers think the 10,000-foot-high mountain range stretches far below what can be seen with the naked eye. Working in frigid temperatures and risking their lives and their bodies to frostbite and injury, the group of scientific explorers collected detailed images of the mountain range deep below the ice sheet using ice-penetrating radars, lasers, and magnetic and gravity meters. And what they found has stirred up controversy. The rocks nearby suggest the mountains are ancient, but they have a steep, rugged shape usually found in younger mountains. It took further analysis of magnetic anomalies found in the rocks to prove that the Gamburtsevs match other rocks excavated around 1 billion years ago, around the time several continents and microcontinents collided, and long before animals and plants appeared on Earth. This means the mountains rose upward and were sculpted by rivers and glaciers around the time dinosaurs roamed the area. As the East Antarctic ice sheet formed, covering 1/10 of the Earth's crust, it entombed the mountain range beneath the ice, preserving it. Next up for scientists is the task of drilling through the ice sheet to collect rock samples from the mountains. Maybe then they'll get a better picture of how the magnificent mountain range grew into the behemoth it is today. Copper arrowhead. Sometimes it takes hard work to make a historic discovery. Other times it's just luck. For an archaeologist named Greg Hare, he was on a walk in the Yukon when he spotted something strange poking from the freshly fallen snow. When he took a closer look, he realized he was staring down at a unique weapon once used by ancient First Nations hunters. While traveling with a documentary film crew in 2016, Hare spotted a herd of caribou on what was once a site where the ancient hunters tracked the animals. Over the last 20 years, he and other archaeologists found other ancient weapons in the area, but Hare didn't expect to come across a strange antler poking from the ice. Where do you think the object came from? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, and if you like this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. When Hare moved in to inspect the object, he realized the antler was attached to something. After carefully removing it, the team realized it had a pointed copper arrow at the other end. One of the oldest copper elements ever found in the Yukon, caribou have been known to take refuge on the alpine ice patches, giving ancient hunters the perfect place to stalk their prey. It's also the reason why so many artifacts have been found there after the snow and ice melts. Other artifacts found nearby include hunting tools made from wood and bone. The discovery of the copper arrowhead is a first for the area, and one that experts think first showed up in the Yukon around 1,000 years ago. For nearly 8,000 years, hunters used throwing darts, but they made a sudden shift into using the bow and arrow to hunt. The accidental discovery of this arrowhead is an exciting one, offering a snapshot into one of the earliest examples of bow and arrows ever recovered in the Yukon. Frozen foxes. Wondering just how cold Germany's Danube River is? Just take one look at this frozen fox and you'll get the idea. After the red fox fell into the fast-flowing river, it struggled to pull itself free, but the current was too strong and the water was too cold for the poor animal to save itself. Instead, the animal drowned, and as the water froze over its body, it became completely trapped in ice. A local hunter spotted the unfortunate fox. Worried that someone might suffer the same fate, he cut free the frozen animal and put it on display in front of his family hotel, hoping others would be so horrified by the sight that they'd steer clear of the river. But if you thought this was a one-time thing, think again. In 2014, a fox fell into a similar situation when it slipped into a river in Scandinavia, not just once, but once each winter over a 5-year period. What would cause these foxes to continually hurl themselves into the frigid waters? Were they so desperate for food that they would put themselves at risk? Ask the fish swimming off the coast of a Norwegian island who suffered the same fate. That's right, onlookers were stunned one winter when they spotted an entire shoal of fish frozen together underwater. Wondering how an animal can freeze so easily? It has to do with their thin skin. Some species have no tolerance to ice, so whenever they're surrounded by frigid water, the cold penetrates the fluid in their bodies, and within minutes, ice fills their abdomens, encasing all their internal organs and giving them no way to escape a watery death. It's definitely not a poetic death, that's for sure.
Medieval mummies. Let's check out some more frozen mummies. These medieval mummies come from a mysterious Arctic civilization recently discovered in Siberia. There are only 2 mummies in this situation, an adult and a baby, and they were both found in an archaeological complex that was first discovered in 1997. However, the mummies were not discovered until 2015. They were completely covered in copper, with the adult mummy being plated from head to toe and the child being covered in fragments of a copper kettle. During the Arctic expedition in 2015, scientists found at least 10 graves, with 5 of them that had not been looted at all. This is likely thanks to the icy conditions keeping the tombs very well hidden. Apparently, the whole region was once home to an ancient civilization that lived there sometime between the 8th and 13th centuries AD. The expedition leader claims that the remains found were in exceptionally good condition and needed to be removed with absolute care. Before the next expedition to this very cold place begins, the science team is going to check out the insides of the mummies, including their burial cocoons, and try to study their DNA to find out more about this extinct civilization in the Arctic and what they were all about. A new island. The Greenland ice sheet is enormous, and it has been melting at an alarming rate over the last few decades. This has contributed to global sea level rise and other environmental changes. But as the ice melts, more cool stuff is being uncovered. One of the coolest things to recently be revealed is an entire new island. The coast of Greenland is continuing to change regional maps, and the newest thing needing to be added to the map is a brand new island. And it's not the first. 2 different glaciers have been slowly retreating from Greenland between 1999 and 2014, and this has added several new islands to the country. It started in 2012 with a narrow glacier connecting the unnamed island with the rest of the land, but now that ice is gone and the only thing left is a lonely island. Some of these islands actually act as anchors, keeping a specific glacier in place. So once the glacier melts off of the island, it's basically like it loses its roots and the rest of the glacier quickly vanishes. As more and more islands appear, the glaciers will melt even more quickly until Greenland is nothing but a bunch of bare islands and like 7 or 8 people. Anthrax release. A brutal heat wave in Siberia in 2017 resulted in an outbreak of deadly anthrax and a series of explosions. As the tundra thaws, things are getting out of control. This happened in northern Siberia, and a boy actually died from anthrax in the remote Yamal Peninsula when temperatures reached over 90 degrees Fahrenheit and melted the permafrost. What happened was that spores of highly infectious anthrax that had been frozen inside of infected reindeer rejuvenated themselves and infected local herds of reindeer, and the anthrax eventually was passed along to local people. As I already said, one boy died, but there were actually 20 others who were infected, treated, and ultimately survived. Up until this incident, anthrax had not been seen in the region for at least 75 years. It's all because of the freak heat wave and the ice thawing. As if an outbreak of anthrax isn't scary enough, there were also huge explosions in the same region. According to The Guardian, local reindeer herders saw flames shooting out of a massive crater that appeared out of nowhere in the ground. Experts believe that the melting permafrost thawed dead vegetation and erupted in a blowout of extremely flammable methane gas. In simple terms, vegetation that had been dead and frozen for thousands of years thawed and released a bubble of methane, which then caught on fire. And apparently over the last 3 years, the same region has been victim to 14 other massive craters thanks to the melting ice. And as the ice melts, more and more bubbles of methane break open and release their gases. The frozen lighthouse. The St. Joseph Lighthouse in Michigan is pretty incredible when it's frozen over with ice. Some pictures have been circling of the frozen lighthouse taken back in January. Apparently, this happens in the coldest part of winter. With strong gales and intense waves, the lighthouse eventually becomes encased completely in ice. This is not really a discovery, but it is pretty cool. Just look at the way the ice forms over the lighthouse. It looks like some kind of frozen castle from a fantasy world. The lighthouse is located on Lake Michigan near Chicago, and it stands 35 feet tall and was first built in 1884. In this area, the air temperature drops significantly to around -4 degrees Fahrenheit, and the frozen waves crash up to nearly 20 feet up on the structure. Making the lighthouse even cooler is the skinny footpath leading between the lake and the building. It also freezes over with ice, and in the winter is very slippery. This is one of the most spectacular things to check out on Lake Michigan during the winter. And while there are many photos of the front of the lighthouse, not many people venture around the back for fear of the tall waves and rioting winds. 91 volcanoes under Antarctica. This might be the scariest discovery ever, ice or no ice. According to PBS, Scottish scientists have found 91 volcanoes locked underneath a giant sheet of ice in the western part of Antarctica. These scientists believe that they have now revealed one of the biggest and most extensive volcanic regions on our planet. These volcanoes are located inside of a 2,000-mile valley that was created in prehistoric times by separating tectonic plates. If the discovery proves to be correct and the scientists really did find 91 new volcanoes, it brings the total number of frozen volcanoes in Antarctica to 138. These volcanoes are also quite diverse, ranging anywhere from 300 feet to 12,600 feet. Even more incredible is that all these new volcanoes were rediscovered by an undergraduate student from the University of Edinburgh who came up with the idea pretty much on his own. The guy single-handedly analyzed radar maps and studied the underside of the ice sheet, analyzing the land using satellite imagery to discover the volcanoes. But here's the big question. Could the volcanoes melt Antarctica's ice in a single day? Imagine if the temperature in Antarctica suddenly skyrocketed as fire and lava belched into the sky. It could be catastrophic for the world. Luckily, these volcanoes appear to be dormant. It's unlikely there would be an eruption anytime in humanity's future. However, even a dormant volcano is able to melt ice because of high temperatures being generated underground. There does not appear to be a problem right now, but that could certainly change without warning. This is definitely a terrifying discovery that everybody should keep on their radar. Arctic craters. Fortunately, these craters are less threatening than underground volcanoes, but they are still a little worrisome. In northern Siberia, giant craters have been exploding into the earth, and scientists say that we should be worried. According to a report from CNBC, the unprecedented melting rate of the Siberian permafrost is causing huge explosions that could threaten many lives. While there is a lot of scientific evidence to take into consideration, such as the landscape and ecology, the changes in the Earth's natural orbit, and rising temperatures, the main thing to know is that the sinkholes have been blowing open in the landscape, likely because of gas explosions. exploding. Carbon dioxide and methane are being released at extremely high rates. When the ice melts too quickly and the gases previously frozen are released suddenly, they explode, which causes giant meteor-like craters to erupt in the Earth. This can prove devastating if you happen to be standing in the wrong spot at the wrong time. Alien markings in the ice. This horrifying tale of things frozen in the ice takes us off planet Earth all the way to the dwarf planet of Ceres. According to a report from the Daily Mail, a series of strange alien markings have been discovered on the surface of this tiny planet. They are currently boggling scientists who have only a few theories about what the bright spots could be. When the spots were first discovered, some believed that they were the markings of an alien civilization. However, scientists from the Solar System Research in Germany now believe the bright spots detected could be water and ice. If you're not sure what Ceres is, it is the largest object within the asteroid belt that sits between Mars and Jupiter. It's not really a planet, but it is the largest piece of rock within the orbit of Neptune. It's like a really big moon that does not belong to any planet, and according to this new research, it could have frozen ice inside of its craters. We don't know what kind of amazing things could be trapped inside of that ice, but scientists do claim that the reason bright spots have been seen on Ceres is because the frozen water inside the craters is emitting a sort of hazy ice cloud, almost like dust particles. These particles cause the dwarf planet to be lit up as if by alien hubs hidden within the craters. But no, it's not aliens, it's just frozen water.
Woolly mammoth's brain. One good thing about permafrost, it preserves some remarkable discoveries. If it wasn't for the frozen Siberian tundra, researchers might never have had the chance to study a well-preserved woolly mammoth. Even better, when they started examining the mammoth's remains, they realized the 39,000-year-old carcass still had its brain mostly intact, the first discovery of its kind by scientists. The mammoth was between 6 and 9 years old when it died near the Laptev Sea in Russia, which meant experts had to be very careful transporting the carcass 93 miles from the site for examination. That's when researchers could really put the specimen under the microscope. Using CT scans and MRI imaging, the scientists were stunned by what they saw. Located at the back of the brain, the animal's cerebellum, which regulated the mammoth's movements. They also spotted the cerebrum, which is the largest part of the brain and helps regulate the animal's temperature. Being able to study the brain up close this way made for some fascinating discoveries. Experts found that the brain structure was very similar to the brains in modern-day elephants, which makes sense since the two are related. This insight has experts wondering if mammoths also shared behavior patterns with elephants, including chasing and wrestling another for play and communicating with one another. Further study of the mammoth brain might unlock these secrets long buried under Russian permafrost.
Baffling ice structure. Some very impressive satellite images have revealed a mysterious icy dome structure on the continent of Antarctica that is fueling the belief that an ancient civilization once thrived there and that their cities can still be found inside of the ice. To be frank, this new discovery is baffling scientists all across the world. The satellite images were first captured by Google Earth, and they appear to show an oval-shaped building hidden beneath the snow. It looks to be roughly 400 feet across, and definitely man-made. With more research, it is possible that we could discover ancient stone buildings underneath the snow. But unfortunately, scientists are not all on board. They instead say that the shape is simply a product of snow amassing in a strange pattern because of strong winds. This is obviously a huge bummer, and I think that someone needs to get down there ASAP with a shovel and start digging to see what they can find. There have been claims of hidden cities on the continent for decades, and it's about time scientists put some serious effort into tracking down any potential evidence underneath the ice and snow of an ancient society that once ruled the Antarctic continent. And who knows, maybe we'll even find Atlantis. New virus found in Glacier. There's been a lot of wild speculation recently, especially with the deadly coronavirus raging across the planet, that somewhere buried deep within the ice is a virus that humans have never seen before, just waiting to unleash itself on humanity. And while this may seem like the synopsis for a horror movie, it's a lot closer to the truth than many of us want to believe. For example, a never-before-seen virus was recently discovered within a glacier of ice in Tibet. Scientists recently took a closer look at 2 ice samples from a Tibetan glacier, and they revealed the existence of 28 virus groups previously unknown to humankind. This is a real thing that happened. According to Live Science, the team of scientists had to wipe away the outer layers of their core ice samples using ethanol and sterile water to reach the very center of the samples, which were uncontaminated. They did this inside of a cold room with stabilized temperatures so that they could get a real look at what kind of horrors were waiting within the ice. This experiment revealed 28 unknown virus groups. While this is not immediately threatening, it is cause for concern. The worst case scenario means that as the ice melts, all of these unknown pathogens are released into the environment, and while it could mean nothing but a few more variations of the common cold, it could also mean the extinction of the human race. The frozen lake from hell. High up in the Himalayas is a frozen lake of mystery and death. The initial discovery of this lake happened about 75 years ago, but since then scientists have revealed even more clues as to the origins of this horrific place in India. It all started with a British forest ranger in 1942 who stumbled upon Rupkund Lake and its frozen secrets. Within the lake, the British ranger found the skeletal remains of hundreds of people, and while this definitely seems strange at first, it gets even stranger. Over the following years, more and more information was brought to light about who the skeletons were and how they died. The biggest mystery now is that radiocarbon dating has revealed that the skeletons all died at various times. It was not one large burial. Instead, some of the bodies proved to be a couple hundred years old, while others proved to be thousands of years old. It turns out that for thousands of years, people have been making a pilgrimage to this lake and dying there. But why? Well, scientists don't really know, but they do know that the skeletons found frozen in the ice did not only come from that one region of India. Genetic analysis showed that the skeletons found inside of the lake came from South Asia all the way to Greece. To this date, researchers have no idea what could lure so many different people from so many parts of the world up to a random lake in the Himalayas to die. It's a complete mystery.
Yellowstone Spear. Researchers working in Yellowstone National Park have their hands full with so many ancient artifacts emerging from melting glaciers in recent years. As the climate changes, hidden secrets of the past are revealed, but archaeologists need to get a move on if they want to preserve these treasures and get a glimpse of how the nation's first people lived. Stunning tools, spears, and even baskets from ancient Native Americans are all items that have resurfaced in the past few years. If you thought these fascinating discoveries only came from deep under permafrost, think again. Melting ice near the surface has also recently exposed ancient trees over 5,000 years old, extinct animals, and ancient wooden weapons. Most of the time, archaeologists find stone objects when unearthing artifacts, but ice patches have a unique ability to cryogenically preserve organic material like leather, wood, textile sand, and even animal fur, giving researchers a vastly expanded idea of how ancient people in the Rocky Mountains lived. Other locations have also revealed rare insects, campsites, and fire rings from native tribes who once called the land their home. As archaeologists work at a fever pitch, they're doing everything they can to save these priceless treasures before they melt away. Woolly rhino. Another historical find made under melting permafrost has revealed a remarkable discovery in eastern Siberia. One day, a local resident was out for a stroll when he stumbled across something bizarre poking out of the snow. When he took a closer look, he realized he was staring down at a strange carcass of an animal he didn't recognize, one with long dark fur and long horns. As soon as experts heard about the discovery, they headed to the location. There, they found one of the best preserved woolly rhino specimens ever recovered in Siberia. It lived in the late Pleistocene era between 20,000 and 50,000 years ago. Remarkably, it had most of its internal organs intact, and there were telltale signs of wear and tear on its horns, which meant it was using them for foraging and hunting. Most of its soft tissue was still visible, including part of the intestines and its genitals. Experts think the rhino was between 3 and 4 years old when it died, probably from drowning. Next to the rhino's body, the animal's small nasal horn was found, which thrilled scientists who know the horns usually decompose first. If you thought the animal was a rarity, you're partly right. They are unique, but there have also been a number of equally fascinating discoveries made in the area. Another young woolly rhino was discovered in 2014 that was about 34,000 years old when it died. Mammoths and rare cave lion cubs have also been found in parts of Siberia. As global warming melts the permafrost in Russia's extreme regions, experts believe even more historic discoveries will be made.
Dive of Doom. This has got to be the most brazen dive you have ever seen. Kingfisher birds are pretty gorgeous, and they very often dive into ponds to snatch little creatures to eat, but this unfortunate pair of kingfishers plunged into the water at the wrong time. This happened in Germany, and it was a priest who stumbled upon the two birds petrified in the ice. This was in northern Bavaria, and it must have happened after temperatures plummeted across most of Europe. Foresters cut the blocks of ice out of the lake that contained the birds to preserve them, and the images are nothing short of shocking. Basically, kingfisher birds will dive through holes in frozen water to try and catch small fish. What probably happened is that both birds dove into the lake to catch some kind of fish. They couldn't find the hole to get back out, and in just a few moments the birds were frozen and dead. While super tragic, it is also quite remarkable. To give you an idea of just how cold the temperature was in Germany at the time, it was about -22 degrees Fahrenheit. That's cold enough to freeze you solid in no time at all. Interestingly enough, it was during the same cold snap that a fox was also found in Germany, completely frozen in a block of ice. During this time, the Mirror reported that at least 30 people died from the cold, and so far as we know, at least 3 very adorable animals were frozen in blocks of ice. Bleeding Glacier. Probably the most disturbing thing to find beneath the ice is blood. I'm talking about the Bleeding Glacier from Antarctica. The dry valleys in Antarctica, even though they are covered in ice, are also some of the driest and most arid places on Earth. However, underneath the dry surface there are lakes and very salty rivers. When talking about the Bleeding Glacier, it really does look like a small section of the glacier is just pouring blood into the ice, but it's actually a rust-colored brine causing the color. It's due to bacteria living underneath the ice. The dramatic blood hue is because brine seeps out from the end of the glacier. The briny water actually goes at least 3 miles up the glacier, while there is more water stretching at least 7.5 miles inland that is twice as salty as seawater. This is all a little confusing, but the main point is that under the ice is groundwater that looks a lot like blood, and according to Live Science, the environment is actually similar to what we might find on Mars. Experts believe Mars also has lakes of briny groundwater under sheets of dried ice, and that the planet actually changed from an environment of liquid water to the dry, arid environment as seen in the dry valleys in Antarctica. What do you think is the craziest thing found in ice? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing videos. See you again soon.